If Donald Trump were the nominee for the Republican Party again, would you support him?
Well, I'm just hoping it never comes to that, because I think it would be a tragedy if he's our nominee, if he's the Republican nominee.
Could you vote not for the Republican if Donald Trump were the Republican nominee?
Well, again, I think it gets down to what I said, which is I would have to make the judgment at that point, the impact on the country.
Former Attorney General Bill Barr not exactly looking forward to Trump's third presidential bid. Let's bring in the roundtable. National Review editor and Bloomberg opinion columnist Ramesh Ponnuru, former North Dakota Democratic Senator and ABC News contributor Heidi Heitkamp, senior White House correspondent Mary Bruce, Rachel Bade, political playbook co-author and also co-author of the excellent book Unchecked, The Untold Story Behind Congress's Botched Impeachments of Donald Trump. So, Ramesh, is the party moving on? Is the Trump era over?
I think it would be premature to say that. I think that Trump has a very strong base of support in the Republican Party. That doesn't mean it's a majority base of support. And I do think this has been a lackluster launch. So he attacked National Review, my magazine, a couple days ago, and I just haven't been hearing much about it. And what I have been hearing has been people saying congratulations and sending money to National Review.
I mean, it's been extraordinary, Heidi, to hear the lack of endorsements coming. I mean, he's pleading for these endorsements practically, and you know, I don't know if it matters. I mean, he didn't have many Republican endorsements when he launched in 2015.
Well, John, you wrote the book Betrayal. Can you imagine how angry he is right now with all these people on the stage in Las Vegas basically saying move over, when he thinks he made the party, that he was the deal maker that gave them the platform. And so he's calling not just these folks, but he's calling the two senators in North Dakota who sought and got his endorsement. He's calling party leadership. He's calling all over to try and solidify what he thinks is making them take the loyalty oath.
And for the most part, they're letting those calls go to voicemail. Mike Pompeo, who was out there in Vegas, had this tweet, which seemed to be a reaction to Trump announcing, although he didn't mention his name. He said, "We were told we'd get tired of winning, but I'm tired of losing, and so are most Republicans." I mean, Rachel, that's the attitude, but it is. You know, Chris Christie made a point out there. It's like, say his name.
Yeah, the fact that he won't even say his name is really telling, right? Still clearly afraid of Trump. I think, you know, obviously the party right now is having this sort of soul-searching moment. But the problem here is that Trump is actually so weak right now that we could conceivably see a repeat of 2016. You have a lot of Republicans who are saying, okay, he's weak, I'm going to jump into the 2024 field. And if there's a ton of candidates out there, Trump still has his core base, and he could very easily, you know, run away with this nomination, and we could see him be the person that's running again in 2024. So yeah, it's tough.
Mary, Biden was right in when Trump announced. I mean, it was interesting. He put out a video while the announcement was still underway, at least on the personal account.
Which actually is a big deal for Joe Biden, who, you know, treads very cautiously when it comes to Donald Trump and him running again. So the fact that Biden, yes, from his personal account, had this video ready to go, you know, calling out Trump's record, arguing that he's, you know, obviously not, in his opinion, the right choice for this country, that is a big deal and does obviously set up this rematch that we may potentially be heading towards. You know, Joe Biden doesn't like to weigh in and get into a tit for tat with Donald Trump all the time, but he certainly is laying the groundwork for what could come. And the White House continues to insist that, you know, yes, Joe Biden is likely to run, and that they think that he is essentially the only one in the Democratic Party who could stand a chance of beating Donald Trump because he's done it before.
And happy birthday, Joe Biden. It's his 80th birthday.
80th birthday.
But in terms of the Republicans, I mean, Rachel, we've been here before. We've been here before many times, actually. And you're kind of like the House expert on Mitch McConnell. Mitch McConnell, who ultimately did not vote to convict Donald Trump in that second impeachment trial, but basically said he's done. Does McConnell regret that vote, you think, now?
You know, you definitely have to wonder because, as I reported in my new book, Unchecked, McConnell thought that Trump was going to be fading into the background. One of the reasons he chose not to vote to convict was because he thought if he did so, Trump would become a martyr and he would stick around longer and try to dominate the party and come back in 2024. Well, that calculation clearly proved wrong because Trump is still around, even though he was acquitted. And so you have to wonder, yes, if he's regretting that choice because he's still haunting McConnell and will continue to do so.
Because that choice could have come with a prohibition on running for president again.
Yes, exactly. They could have barred him from office. And I mean, you know, in the book, we talk a lot about these impeachments and how we use the word botched. The reality is that Democrats, not just Republicans, have turned a blind eye. Democrats never went all in terms of trying to go after Trump and investigating everything they could have to try to lay out this case that this man is dangerous and shouldn't be president again. And so, pick up the book. You'll read a lot of stuff in there about how they didn't go all the way, and because of that, he's coming back.
I think you make a compelling case there, but Heidi, I mean, is there a part of the Democratic, if just pure politics, you're glad to see Donald Trump still around?
Mary, Biden comes out. We saw all across the country in the last midterm, Democrats going all in on more conservative, more Trump candidates. There's a little bit of that at play here because Trump is the candidate that keeps losing. If you're going to pick someone to run against, why wouldn't you pick Donald Trump? He's the gift that keeps on giving to Democrats.
See, but the problem with that strategy, I think, is also the problem with the prevailing Republican anti-Trump strategy, which is to say that he's a sure loser. He's not a sure loser. If there's a recession, you'll have head-to-head polls probably showing him ahead of Biden some point next year. And then A, what happens to that anti-Trump strategy if he no longer looks like a sure loser? And B, have the Democrats ended up again playing with fire?
Heck, if he gets the nomination, he may have Bill Barr's vote, even after Barr just said it would be a tragedy.
Well, there's huge Trump fatigue in the electorate. I mean, it swirls around here, but let me tell you, I know Trump voters who are tired. I got tons of texts from friends who are Republicans saying, ugh, when Trump announced. And so I disagree. I think Trump, clearly, that the Republicans are reading the tea leaves right. He can't win election. And if you're going to pick a candidate right now to run against in 2024, you pick Donald Trump if you're a Democrat.
All right. The other drama, I mean, there are many dramas simultaneously happening here, but the Republican takeover of the House, does McCarthy actually have the votes to become Speaker?
If he gets the votes, he'll get them a few minutes beforehand. I don't think he has the votes right now.
Yeah. So what happens?
I think you have the potential for prolonged chaos where the opponents of McCarthy inside the Republican caucus show that they've got him where they want him and then allow him to take the speakership.
Prolonged chaos.
Yeah, I mean, you talk to McCarthy's camp, they think he's going to do it. They think he's going to get there, and that the question is, what does he have to give these conservatives in order to get there? But
he won't get there on the first ballot. They're going to have to vote over and possibly over over again.
Potentially. But the issue here is that you now have a number of conservatives who say there's nothing that McCarthy could give them that would make them vote for him for Speaker. And we've seen something like this before. Speaker Pelosi had this problem in 2018 where there was a bunch of rebels who wanted her out, so they won't vote for her. But she was able to pick them off one at a time. The issue here is McCarthy is no Pelosi when it comes to the iron grip that she had over the Democratic caucus. And so if he gets there, he's going to have to really give some serious concessions that are going to make him potentially the weakest speaker we have seen in modern history because he's going to be giving up a lot of authority to these conservatives.
But Mary, you've spent a lot of time around McCarthy, and he does have really strong relationships within. I mean, that's what he's been campaigning for 218 votes for a long time. But you have a guy like Matt Gaetz come out and said he'd rather be waterboarded by Liz Cheney, I think was the quote, than vote for McCarthy.
Yeah, I mean, given the razor-thin majority here, it's going to be really hard for McCarthy. And then the question is, even if he is Speaker, is it governable, the majority that he does have? Because he's going to have to give so many concessions. How do you appease the different factions within the Republican Party? And then what does that mean when it goes to working with the White House? I mean, talking about relationships, McCarthy and Joe Biden, not exactly friends.
They've barely spoken.
No, they had that one phone call. And even Joe Biden has been frank in saying he doesn't really know the guy. I'm told they are planning to have a face-to-face meeting sometime soon, or he will meet with Republican leaders, possibly once some of this gets sorted out, I suspect. But look, the idea that they're going to get anything done, I think, is beyond optimistic. We all know where McCarthy is heading, and this is going to be just an investigation palooza.
And that's the thing, coming to what Ramesh is, if he doesn't get 218 votes, it's chaos. But those that are saying, hell no, they won't vote for Kevin McCarthy,
Alternative.
they like chaos. I mean, that's not an argument against it. I mean, they want chaos.
Yeah.
But ultimately, you've got to have a speaker. And I can't let this go by without drawing the contrast between what's happening in the Republican conference and caucus and what Nancy Pelosi pulled off in this transition of leadership. I mean, the mark of a really great leader is a succession planning. She had this thing greased, and now you've got
no
the chaos.
drama.
I know. And think about the comparison. If it takes them 2 months to name a speaker, and you say, well, the administration work with them, when the first thing they announce is that they're going to investigate your son. So, I mean, you know, Paul Ryan was fairly optimistic that there's going to be an agenda. Trust me, there's not going to be an agenda.
Was it Will Rogers who said, I don't belong to an organized political party, I'm a Democrat? I mean, that was pretty organized.
Yeah, parties have traded places.
So let's go back to the other, I mean, there's crazy news overnight. Donald Trump is back on Twitter. Elon Musk did it with a poll. Do we have the poll? I think we have it. He did a Twitter poll. This was how he made this kind of monumental decision. It was 52% to 48%. That's not what Musk said he was going to do.
But there it is. And you know, Donald Trump has suggested he may not return to Twitter, right? He prefers his Truth Social, but I don't know if Donald Trump can resist. Yeah. I mean, the audience and the platform of Twitter, we know, is a hard one for Donald Trump's thumbs not to just want to jump at. I think there is a question about what kind of Twitter he will be participating in, given what we've seen at the company in the last week, given the massive exits and layoffs and just sort of the problems that company may be encountering. But there is a real risk here. I think, you know, Twitter is something that I think all of us rely on and use a lot. The question is, what kind of megaphone will it give to Donald Trump? What kind of checks will there be? And this is a man who was kicked off of Twitter for inciting violence and spreading blatant lies. And what happens when he is given free rein again? And does it become potentially, you know, a hotbed for misinformation again?
Talk about it.
Because he's got 83. I mean, it keeps changing. Million followers that have been restored on Twitter. On Truth Social, which is his own, and he owns the platform, he's got a fraction of that. I mean, and he truths or whatever they call it, and nobody hears it.
That's exactly why I think a lot of people expect him back on Twitter. He loves the attention, right? And talk about a gift to Democrats. I mean, I remember covering Paul Ryan, one of your previous guests, when Trump would tweet all the time from the White House, and we would chase Paul Ryan around the halls, and us Republicans comment on this controversial comment that Trump just made, and they would spend all their days trying to dodge all these questions. But for Democrats, it's great. They can hold that up to their voters and say, look at the Republican Party. We are the adults at the table, and this is what's happening.
But Heidi, if he goes on Twitter again, his own company is effectively dead.
And there is a discussion today about an SEC restriction that he has in his own company to not migrate all of his tweets over there, you know, like a 6-hour hold off. And so not that Donald Trump has always been worried about legal guardrails.
He is worried about money, though.
Yeah, he is. And the last thing he needs is a SEC investigation.
Yeah, well, there's also a big loophole in that contract which allows him to do things to get out the vote, for example, on other media, which includes Twitter, and almost anything he says could be interpreted that way if he wants to. But I think that this time what needs to happen, not just with Trump, just with Twitter in general, the press needs to cover Twitter with an understanding that's internalized in every story that most people aren't on it. And even most people who are on it aren't obsessive about it the way we in the press tend to be. That, I think, has been a real dysfunction in the relationship between the press and Twitter.
But Rachel makes such a great point. I've watched them dodge during my time in the Senate, reporters like you, and that's going to make it miserable for all the people who don't want to be disloyal to Donald Trump, but also don't want to own his crazy.
Right.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.